Oh, okay. I guess this is recording. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the very first interview for Franxx TV. I'm recording this in my living room because I wanted to do something a little more personal since I'll be bringing on Vance from Chicago, Illinois. We met through Instagram, and they're another, um, super thoughtful and eccentric and exciting queer artist. And I tried to do this last week, but I ended up deleting the entire interview. So here we are again, trying to get it done today. Currently waiting for them to connect. But in the meantime, just hang out for a second and stick around.
The purpose of her life isn't yours to understand, cause she's so free from the man. Cause that girl does what no one can. That's Franxx. She's the type of girl that you love to detest. But when the one those feelings you choose to repress. She's so beautiful I don't know how to address. Let's call her FRNXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX What was that bitch's number again?
All right, so let's get Vance in here. Welcome. Happy to have you back. Happy to have figured out.
Here I am.
I know. I just did like a little thing, and I was talking about how we had done this like whole conversation last time, and how none of it got saved because I didn't know how to. I just didn't. Whatever.
Right.
I just didn't know that screen record wasn't that reliable, and that QuickTime's kind of a bitch. Sorry, I have headphones in today because I'm downstairs in my living room and the birds have been really loud. I know. So if you hear the birds, just try to like pretend like you don't.
No, it's good. It's a good background noise. It's not bad at all.
Right. They just have been, it's because they've been mating, so they've been making a lot of like, they're just getting really weird and getting really bizarre.
Right. They're getting warmer.
Mm-hmm. And they're starting to get really like anxious and territorial, and so they just like, they just get loud and start to bicker, and then they'll fight. It's a lot.
It's been warmer here too. If it's warmer, that's when you know shit down. When it's
warmer in Chicago.
That's when you know.
So I guess we'll start again. Welcome to Franxx-TV. Very happy to. This is too hot. Very happy to have you here. Tell us. So So we'll do this a little more brief this time, I guess. But tell me. So you're from Chicago. How did you end up there?
Yeah. Well, I'm not from Chicago.
I'm from Chicago.
Yeah. Originally, but I just remembered something that I need to do really quick.
Okay.
Be right. Can we?
Yeah, I'll pause it.
Okay. Be right back later.
So welcome back. Recording has resumed. That was a nice little personal moment. So, okay. So, sorry. So, tell us about where you are in the world and what it's like. I guess briefly.
Yeah. Oh, so like where I came from and whatnot. Yeah. So I'm from Indiana originally. I moved to Chicago a little over 2 years now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I moved here to, start my future, start my career, start my musical journey that I've been on. And it's been weird since I was like a little kid. I've always wanted to live here. And it wasn't because there was something particular about it. It was just, there was this weird desire like, oh, I'm going to end up here for some reason. Before I had even gone, before I'd even been here, I even have a picture in my that I had done when I was in elementary school. And the picture was all about like the city, like, I'm going to be here, it's going to happen. So bizarre. And then it did happen. Like, so that seed was so early that I needed to be here. So I took that so far. was exactly what I needed. So yeah, I've been here
Yeah.
doing the thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great that when you can like, I think it's like really great when you can just like feel something and just kind of like, oh, skirt. I don't know why, I don't know who, I just know this, and you know, I'm just gonna lean into it. So you talked about your musical career, which is exactly kind of what actually ended up bringing us together. I think was the shared passion for, um, just like, I mean, I think what post pop, I think is the hyper pop. You know, this like new genre of pop music that's very exciting that I think both of us work in. And you actually just released an EP, Unbounded, which I really was excited about. And I was like, okay, wait, we need to get Vance on here to talk to us about the different themes and influences. I was like, because we can definitely hear all the layers when you play yourself through it. So if you want to, I guess first, I wanted to know if you could elaborate a little bit on like the sonic choices. So like what inspired you sonically when creating the album, for the EP? I guess, yeah, that's the question. Sorry. So what inspired you sonically?
Well, you know, this is the first thing I've, so I've been wanting to do this for years. So over time, so many different ideas and like built up in my head, you know, kind of kept them in the back of my head.
Mm-hmm.
So when came time when I started to do it, by the time the end product came, there had been so many different sonic choices that have come from so many different artists that I'd listened to growing up. So it's almost hard to say where one begins and where one ends. You know, I grew up loving pop music, but also grew up really loving like metal, like heavy metal and like industrial rock. And like, so, you know, when I wanted the album, I wanted to make something that was sort of in between those two. I mean, sonically, it's definitely more dance pop, just because that's more of what I'm into now. But, you know, for example, Running Out of Time, the first track, it's very 80s, very synth, but also has that very, you know, sort of that mid 90s industrial sort of grungy vibe, but also very poppy and contemporary. So, you know, growing up, it was, you know, Marilyn Manson, it was Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
Bowie, it was Prince. It was a lot of different, and what do they all share? You know, they're very different types of artists, but they all share the whole, you know, sort of state that they make in all their art. So, you know, they're definitely, you can, if those artists, anyone who knows them, will definitely hear some semblances, but I did want it to also sound very original. So also this interplay between old and new, things that sound nostalgic, but at the same time have a very fresh contemporary vibe to them. And also, you know, there's so much music now, I feel like it's not edgy. Music is not very edgy. It's very round. It's warm, chill, which is totally fine. But I wanted to make something that was different than that, that, you know, kind of grabbed you versus something that you just kind of put on in the background. You know, this is definitely something you don't just put in the background. You want to really sit down, at least the first couple times you listen to it, really just listen through, you know, through all the different, but yeah, it's definitely an album that or an EP that requires a lot of focus and concentration. And also, and we had talked about this before, but also classical music. I was trained as a classical, and so definitely that inspires me a lot. And the music, there's a lot of different layers, things coming in and out. There's an orchestral element to all of the tracks as well. A lot of different melodies and sort of motifs, things like that. So that's hard to answer the question. There's a lot of different things. I almost feel like it's a collage piece.
Well, I mean, that's an answer. You know, I appreciate that. I think I feel like there's something I read somewhere that was saying that some of the best pop musicians come from the most diverse backgrounds, because you can just kind of like pick all of it up and like mash it together into something that's like completely new. You know, which I really appreciate about your work.
I think I do know how to do that.
This is very original. It's like unabashedly like you. I think that's one of the things when I heard it, I was like, oh, I guess sonically that was definitely present. I definitely understood. I was like, oh, this person listens to a lot of music. I was like, this person has, and knowing that you're trained in classical music, I'm like, oh wait, no, this person has like a lot of sonic energy that they've been building on. And then another thing too, when it came to the EP that I was really excited about was that you weren't afraid to use lyrics that were, I think I like what you just said about being round, edgy versus being round. I think I really appreciated a lot of the lyricism. Especially, just across the board, it was very like direct and like honest, but there wasn't any, which I think is very you. And I was like, this person doesn't give a fuck. Tell us a little bit maybe about your voice and like how you found the strength to be so direct and vocal. I think a lot of people really appreciate that, and it's not something that's very common.
Well, I mean, it depends on who you ask. You ask my family, my parents especially, they'll say, oh, Vance has always been very direct and confrontational. I don't shy away from a fight,
yeah.
That, likes to engage in discussion and whatnot. So I don't know. I guess that's just how I've always been kind of, a very contradictory figure. I always think of myself that way. I have two extreme energies I feel like that pull me. One that's very like soft and like romantic and like wanting to, sort of not ruffle feathers, like chill with everyone. But then there's that other part that's very much the opposite. That's always wanting to push boundaries and always wanting to challenge. So, growing up, it's been, especially in my teen years, that was it was a lot. But I don't know. It's just something that I've always had. And, lyrically, I'm talking about things that are important to me personally, but also a reflection of what's going on in the world. So I wanted someone to, if they heard this, they would feel that, to be like, oh, I can relate on a personal level, and then on the big scale levels too. There's a lot of political, a lot of things about spirituality that kind of pops up. Big topics, not something that is for everyone, for sure. But like you said, I have to be true to myself. Like I have to say what I feel is right, and that's where my mind was at the time. I went through a lot of growth making this music, which I didn't happen. I knew some growth would happen. Any time I had done a creative endeavor, it's always kind of grown me. But I think this was the first time in my life that I really pushed and pushed. I mean, I'm almost a different person now than I was before I did it. I had kept writing lyrics and making tracks, and whenever I'd show them to people, they didn't seem that impressed. They really didn't. And it was because it's not that I didn't know who I wasn't ready to be open with who I was. And I had to do that in order for the music to shine through. It forced me to like become myself. There's I don't know the quote by hand. I mean, on top of my head, so I'll just have to summarize, but there was a Bowie quote once. He talked about like every time he makes music, he feels like he's learning more about himself. He does music and that's why throughout his life, he changed his image and his style and he changed so much, because every time he did something, it opened a new door for him. And he's like, if you're not doing that as an artist, he said, then you're just you're not doing much. You're just kind of racking in the money and out the money for him was all about being an artist. So I now firsthand, I get that. I've experienced that. When I started making this, I would never have worn this.
Right.
I mean, thing is simple as that. It just, I put myself through it. Kind of odd. Through creating something, it reflected back to me part of myself. So lyrics are personal, but they also can apply to anyone, I mean, it's big issues, big human issues and whatnot. So.
I really appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that with us, with the world, with everybody who's watching. You know, I say us, like me and my 7 personalities, but I appreciate that a lot. That's even what you said about bringing in the David Bowie quote, paraphrasing the quote or whatever it was that he said. They said he. That's a very, I think when, and even with what you said about round music earlier, it feels like pop music is missing a lot of that artistry that used to exist. You know, like I feel like Lady Gaga was like maybe the last person to like give it on a big scale, and then even she got like eaten up, and it was just kind of like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, pop music is risky in this day and age. So, and that's why I did it. I was like, well, I'm gonna do what's risky. So, yeah.
I love that. I resonate a lot with that. I'm like, I think when people, because I think before there was the question of like, if you're making experimental music, you're making experimental music. But if you're making experimental pop music, that's actually, like you said, it's so much more risky because you're like trying to run all of these different cultural channels together. And it's like, but actually, it's like, it is pop music, but it's actually also all these other things. And it's actually not any of this at the same time. And that's what makes it exciting, I think, is that doesn't exist anymore. You know, it's definitely something I've like missed in the last like 10 years of pop music. It's gotten so soft, you know, it's so, there's no one out here like screaming in the streets the way that there used to be when it comes to artistry. You know, I think we've seen a lot of that in the people, but not as much in the artists anymore.
Well, I mean, it's just become very, you know, it's sound that sells. And, you know, we're in the era of streaming now, so it's all about streams. So creativity and doing things outside of the box is very during this. So, you know, and not going to name any artists in particular, but there are some artists that are making a living off a certain sound versus being an artist. So it's odd. It's almost like there is almost a separation happening between art and the artist now that used to not. There's sort of like, oh, this got 1 million streams, so let's keep making music that has this. So it becomes business more than it becomes about business, the executing artistry with business. It's sort of now becoming just more and more business, and like so many other things in the world, becoming more and more corporatized, becoming more and more. So, you know, that's just where we're at. But it's not going to stop me from doing what I want to do, because at the end of the day, people like good music. That people like music that speaks to them, that's authentic, that gives a message, and people love things that are bold as well. So it really doesn't matter in the end. It's all a mind game. You know, you can say, no, that's not for me, so I can't do it. No, it doesn't matter. I mean, all the artists that I love, they certainly pushed the mold. They all certainly like came at a time when doing the things that they wanted to do were not very fashionable. So it's all about just showing that, no, it is enough, and it doesn't matter, you know, what, you know, the labels say or what streaming services say. You know, you got to do your own thing, especially as a new artist. If you start off trying to be like everyone else, ain't gonna work.
It's like you're just gonna cheapen your entire experience.
Well, I mean, you're already starting out giving up, kind of. You know, a little bit. So I had to, with this first project, I had to say, no, this is where I'm at, right? And
like, this is who I'm gonna be, this is who I am. Like not selling out. I appreciate that a lot.
No, I mean, I suppose not selling. I suppose that's a way to put it.
Because there was something else that this is like, I guess this feels like it's coming out of left field, but it's sort of like we live in a world that's so focused on like instant gratification. You know, it's like that instant. It's like nobody wants to work the 15 years it takes to like understand everything about who you are. Everyone wants to just oh, first song I made, 1 million streams, signed to a label, that's my life. You know, nobody wants to, and even there's a lot of like, well, I guess the different things that are kind of collecting in my brain about the instant gratification. It's like the fake famous like Instagram world of like influencers and stuff like that. And then there's like even Grindr and like Tinder and like how those apps have gone from being about connecting to just kind of cheapening the entire community. You know, what are your thoughts on any of these like new like vapid ways of connecting? I guess especially tying it into like music and the vapidness of modern pop music. Like, what are your thoughts on those things? I know,
well,
sorry.
You know, it's an interesting thing with technology, you know, that we things that are supposed to make our lives easier, and often they do, but there always comes a cost to them as well. So, you know, we live in a world right now where we're so connected. But are we really? I mean, that's the question. I mean, yes, there's followers online, there's people that you communicate with, but at the end of the day, are we really getting that same kind of connection and communication that we had previously? You know, I'm not saying to get rid of those things. Obviously, now in our culture, it is what it is. But there is definitely something lacking about what I consider to be very clever ways of hiding who you really are on these technologies. You know, we like to have a fake of who we are, and it is a great way to protect ourselves from pain. It is a great way to protect ourselves from disappointment. So I think it is having a lot of drawbacks. Or we're talking about just the LGBTQ plus community. There's a lot of dark stuff out there. There's a lot of broken people that are afraid to love and afraid to get hurt. And so we use sort of these apps and these tools as ways to mitigate that pain, period. Like,
yes,
judging people who like to hook up, who like to have a good time, and that's not what I'm saying. But when you're running from yourself, that's what a lot of us are doing. We're running from ourselves. We're terrified of ourselves. And a lot of us grew up having very confused notions of love, because, you know, we had parents that may have loved us but didn't accept us, or other family members. Grow up thinking that love is kind of a scary thing. Yeah. And so it takes a lot of will in order to get past that. But I definitely think a lot of our technologies we have are not aiding in that process very well. And I suppose with music, I guess we can bridge the two, is that, you know, it's hard. In a way, streaming has made listening to independent artists easier, because the labels don't have so much control over anymore on what the public can see and what they can't. At the same time, we're almost in kind of an opposite place where there's so much now, it's hard to hone in. So I'm the type of person that likes to hone in. I personally don't like to just put on Spotify or Apple Music and just random. I just never been that way. I'm not saying if you are or aren't, just that's not how I am. But I think for us independent artists, there is definitely that struggle is there. There's just so much. How do you stand out? How do you stand out? That is the question in this era. So there is no answer really. It's just be yourself. That's really all it is. It's not, and to make quality work. And that means good quality music. That means, you know, everything that has to do with your brand, who you are, has to be of a certain quality. So that's where we're at. But, you know, these technologies are used, but they shouldn't replace certain aspects. They shouldn't. They're limited. And, you know, meet them in person, for example. Or an art, it may be, you know, there's more steps that are needed. So, but that's kind of a basic overview of how I feel about that.
No, I appreciate you answering that question. I honestly think a lot of people think that way. I think more people probably think that way than are willing to say out loud. which
Of course.
is, and I definitely, that's why I wanted to see what your thoughts were on it, because I was like, no, I was like, I know that you have enough of the same like confidence to be able to say it out loud and be like, no, these, sure, like, yeah, it's like a double-sided thing. It's like, yeah, okay, on one end, opportunities and connections, but on the opposite end, like, look at everything else that's hidden in it. You know, I think the phrase you said about it being like a place to like create a mask, I think that's so real. You know, I think I've met people that I've originally followed online, and then we chatted or met in real life, and I was very underwhelmed a lot of the times. You know, I was very like, oh, you're look cool. Like, oh, and I appreciate what you say about the authenticity too, because that's something that, I mean, that's really the thing that's read the most about our interactions and about just you in general. To me, I was like, oh, this person's very authentic. They're not trying to be anything. They're not trying to appeal to any certain thing. They're just being who they are and going with it, you know. I really appreciate that. I think a lot of people, I think more people in the world need more of that, you know. There doesn't need to, like, don't get me wrong. If I was in a Pepsi commercial, I would definitely be in a Pepsi commercial. But I would be in a Pepsi commercial, not like the record label version of me. It's like it would be my version of the Pepsi commercial. You know, there would be like dead bodies hanging everywhere and like muck on the walls or something, and like a really heavy industrial like razor edge noise sounds, and it'd be like Pepsi, you know. Like it wouldn't be glossed out and me like dancing on a car, you know. But maybe that's, I wonder, what do you think, do you see like an end, or I guess like what would be like an aspirational like hope, like what do you hope for the world in that way? Like, since we're in this kind of like almost like dark techno, where do you want it to go, you know?
Where I want,
like,
sorry.
Oh, since we're in this like almost like a dystopian technology society, how, I guess, moving onward and upward, what do you want for the future, I guess, like post, I know big question.
Huge question.
Yeah.
What do I want, or what do I think is going to happen?
Maybe a mixture of both.
Mixture of both. Well, of course, I want human rights to be non-debatable. It'd be great. World where we don't have to sit and have debates about human. And I know a lot of people on the political right, they're very insecure about their knowledge of things. So what they love to do is to set up fake debates about things in order to make it seem like they get something and, you know, they understand, and, oh, well, you know, I have my view. It's all insecurity. It's all ego and insecurity. So it's not real, basically. So once we as a society push against that kind of shit and go, you know what, this isn't even a real debate. Like, we're not going to debate if a trans woman has the same rights as a straight woman. You know, we're not going to a straight white cis woman. We're not going to have that debate. That's not a legitimate debate. Yeah. Because these are human talking about. So once we get past this identity politics thing, honestly, once we get past it, we have to actually go beyond it in order to heal. We can't get, we have to see ourselves as human beings before anything else. So we get enough people in society to get raised to that level of consciousness. And it doesn't have to be every single person. It has to be enough to carry that energy. You know, there just has to be enough of that going on. And I think once we get there, then we can actually deal with the real issue, which is our disconnection from reality, from the universe, from something bigger than ourselves. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about something more. Transcendence of our mortality, of who we are. Then we're ready to really become enlightened as a species. I do think we will get there. Do I know when? I have no idea. But I know we're not going to get there easily. You know, suffering, challenges in life are presented to us for a reason. They are presented to us to push us to become a better version of ourselves. Anything in life that is challenging that comes toward. You know, the United States has, for decades, has been a very dark place in terms of a lot of socio-political issues. There have been a lot of terrible things that have happened. I'm actually rewatching the show Pose right now. Great show.
Great show. Cried so many times during that show.
And what I learned so much was how serious and how crazy the AIDS epidemic was for our community. And, you know, but because that happened, look where we are now. I mean, we have certainly made strides. And I'm not saying, oh, it's great that so many people died and this happened. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is something terrible happened, and we used it as an opportunity to say, hey, we're human beings. We matter. And sometimes it takes tragedy in order for us to grow.
That's real.
It is real. It's not what we want. Our egos really want things to work out the way we want it to all the time. We want things without earning them in life. We want to be all these things, but we actually don't want to sacrifice anything or go through the hardships that the universe presents us with in order to get there. We don't want to do that, but we must. And so we have a long ways to go. I think things are going to get much darker before it gets better. But my hope is that we rise above and we take all of these things and we use them to transform ourselves both on an individual level first and then on a societal level. So that's what I hope. And I do think some will probably happen, but I don't know when, and I'm certainly not going to bank on it happening anytime soon. All I can do is do the work that I need to do, learn more about myself, do my individual work, and then do everything I can to bring it to the world. And honestly, that's what I want to do this music for anything other than to inject truth into the world in a place, because truth is very rare in society, super rare. You don't find it hardly ever. You go outside and walk around the street, there's a lot of deception and manipulation everywhere. So, you know, truth becomes something that we don't even recognize when it presents itself.
Literally.
An artist that is always pushing for the truth, no matter how comfortable it is. Because it is what is healing. It has been healing for my life, and I'm sure for yours. When we accept truths about ourselves, it just
the universe just works.
It does. When you let go, you're not gonna fall.
Exactly.
You know? Supported, and we all need to keep that in mind. And we also can't get hung up in wanting to change other people.
Yeah,
because it's not our business to change other people, especially people who aren't willing to. We have always responsibility for ourselves first. Yeah, that's kind of.
Thank you for that. I think we're actually really at a good time to go ahead and close out. You know, I'm really happy to have brought you on, and thank you for sharing your brain with all of us. You know, there was so many gems in everything that you said, and I think anybody who is a young artist, a new or older artist, anybody who's like queer, or even just a regular person who's trying to figure out what life means, can gain a lot from a lot of the things that you said. And so I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing them with us. You know, I think that's what this whole thing is about. It's just being authentic and genuine. So I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. Great to be able to talk about, you know,
real stuff with a real person.
I care about being able to talk about my art a little bit. And there were certain things in the future, obviously. But right now I'm enjoying strangers listening to to it and getting input. So I'm happy to be on here to do that.
Well, yeah, happy to have you. So thank you so much for being here. Everyone in the world, Unbounded is available everywhere.
Right.
So Spotify, Apple Music, we'll put links somewhere in the comments. I'm really bad at YouTube. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I'm super real for it. But there's links, there's gonna be links, maybe something will pop up here, depending on how this MP4 exports. And we're so happy to have you, and thank you so much. I guess we'll see everyone soon.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.